Dedicated to geeks and nerds, you're listening to Project I Radio, 24/7 Nerdgasm.
Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
This is Bizzong, the bizarre and weird fiction podcast, with me, your host, Mr. Frank. Zongers! This week, well, I wanted to originally cover the CrawlCon, which I went to this weekend. And for those not familiar with what CrawlCon is, it is the annual gathering of writers that the Dynatox Ministries / Dunham's Manor Press holds right here in New Jersey. Last year, I went to my first CrawlCon and had an amazing time connecting with really great, like-minded writers. So this year, it was my intention to bring along the Bizzong podcasting equipment to the con and talk to those in attendance. Unfortunately, I had to fight some monsters this week. I had a swarm of termites in my house right before I was scheduled to leave for the convention. And in my battle with these demons from the subterranean realms, I had to run out the door after I killed thousands upon thousands of them and completely forgot not only to bring my podcasting equipment, but also the story I was going to read at the convention. Needless to say, I didn't capture what I wanted to at the convention, and it kind of worked itself out okay, because the fact of the matter was, CrawlCon for 10 hours on Saturday was wall to wall, nothing but great entertainment from a bunch of fantastic people. 10 full hours of readings and just talking and networking with people and these little panels of information. It was an amazing time, as it always is. And, you know, I can't thank Jordan Kroll enough for putting this together. It's a very important thing for us bizarro and weird fiction writers over here on the East Coast. You know, out in Portland, they have the Bizarro Con, and there's a big, giant gathering. And that's great. But out here on the East Coast, seriously, if it wasn't for Jordan Kroll, Dynatox Ministries, and CrawlCon, it would be a desolate situation. So what Jordan Kroll is doing is so very important to the writing community out here on the East Coast. He brings in people from the Midwest, from Texas, and yes, even from Sweden. I had a fantastic time. I got to meet Justin Grimble for the first time. He was a fantastic guy. There was just so many people that had great readings. John Meyer, Phil Lepresti, Jordan Kroll, Christopher Ropes, Donald Armfeld. Great presentations by Ron Weir and Nick Cato. And I'm going to forget like a million names and a million people that I talked to and connected with. But, unfortunately, I didn't get to sit down and interview and talk to people while I was there. But seriously, it was 10 full hours. I don't know when I would have had a moment to turn the microphone on and talk to these people. So maybe next year, maybe not. But the CrawlCon this year was fantastic. If you're out here on the East Coast early April next year and you dig the stuff that Dynatox Dunham's Manor is doing, get your butt to CrawlCon. It is such a fantastic time for writers of the bizarre and weird fiction. Moving along to our interview this week, I said to myself, how do I follow up an interview with John Skip? And I thunk on it and thunk on it and thunk on it. And it came to me. If you can't interview a legend, interview the sexiest motherfucker you know. So I did that. This week we have the one, the only. Not only is he the sexiest Canadian in the world, but he's the sexiest fucking writer. I'm talking about Leonard Delaney, the man who wrote Conquered by Clippy, the viral sensation of bizarre erotica. Mr. Delaney sat down gave a candid interview. First of all, he ruined my image of him when he said, it's just a pen name, Leonard Delaney. Okay, we'll get past that. Everybody's entitled to the privacy, especially when they're writing this crazy, bizarro fiction. To which I took him to task. But as you know, Zongers, I've been coming around. I've been giving it a pass lately. It's not just something to jerk off to. It's not something ridiculous that, like, maybe you're some kind of fucking extremely weird pervert if you're jerking off to this stuff. Maybe, just maybe, it is a very legitimate form of bizarre and weird literature. Maybe it's not meant to be jerked off to. Maybe it's meant to be taken as parody. You know what? Not maybe. That's exactly what it is. So, we've been talking to people like Rooster Republic, who have their new kink imprint. We talked to Christoph Paul / Mandy DeSandra, also a writer of the weird erotica stuff. And for me, the king of it, the guy who has like the best titles as far as I'm concerned, Leonard Delaney. We're going to sit down with him and interview the sexiest motherfucker in weird, bizarre fiction. Zongers, I present to you Leonard Delaney. I'd like to welcome to Bizzong this week the very sexy, the very debonair, the one and only Mr. Leonard Delaney. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Frank. It's awesome to be on the show. I'm a total zonger.
Awesome. That's great. You must be the guy listening.
I'm sure there's lots.
I hope so. You're on the show so I can chastise you.
That's what I was expecting from this.
Yeah. So I'll call you. We'll start out. I'm gonna call you to task. Okay.
Yeah, call me out. I can take it.
What the fuck are you doing writing erotica based around weird computer objects? Am I supposed to be jerking off to this for $2.99 a pop?
I know a lot of people do. I'm not sure I designed it that way when I first put it out there. But I've heard feedback from people who say that it's really effective erotica, and they really enjoy it, and it's sexy. And I never designed it to be sexy or effective or something that you take action with. But I know people do actually use it for that purpose. So however people want to enjoy it, that's fine. But obviously it's a bit tongue in cheek.
I think so. And the other thing I'm going to call you to task for is the $2.99 aspect. Do you harbor any feelings of guilt for taking $3 for writing a 20-page book?
I kind of go back and forth on that. I mean, obviously, you know about how Amazon doesn't give you a 70% cut unless you get that $2.99 mark. So it's almost like a minimum of what Amazon is incenting people to set their books at. So if you set it for 99 cents, then you're getting like 30 cents a sale, and you don't make much money. So I'm being greedy in that way. On the other hand, $2.99, that's like the price of a cup of coffee. So you get half an hour of enjoyment out of a cup of coffee. You get probably an hour of enjoyment out of a crappy erotica book. So I don't know. It kind of makes sense, but compared to full novels that are $3 or $4, it's a bit weird. But it's kind of a money thing. Kind of I'm just putting it out there and seeing what happens. I do have some books at 99 cents and some that are free, just to kind of experiment. I think that's the great thing about this kind of self-publishing era, is that you can do whatever the fuck you want. And just kind of try it, see what happens. If it doesn't work, if people hate it, you can try something else, and just see what happens. That's
awesome. I shit on it, but I've done this podcast. Not only am I talking to you, but we talked to the guys at Rooster Republic, also putting out their new kink line. And I understand it's a business, and if you put it up for $2.99, obviously you're selling it to some degree. And obviously, probably a pretty good degree based on the amount of this weird erotica that is out there. So, I don't ever begrudge the model, and really, like you said, write what you want, have fun with it. On my other podcast, Books, Beer, and Bullshit, when we first started kind of shitting on this kind of stuff, my co-host had brought up a good point where the $2.99 is worth it because since this is like a spank book, you got a high rereadership level. You go back to it a lot, so you get more mileage out of it, and it's okay.
Do people actually do that? Like,
I don't know.
I just remember, back in the day, I'd download porn videos and keep them in a special folder on my hard drive and watch them over and over. But in this era of streaming and books are basically disposable to a lot of people. I wonder if people actually reuse my porn books. That's weird to think about, man.
So I got to ask you, what made you even start writing this odd erotica stuff?
A lot of it came from I kind of picked up 50 Shades of Grey, like a lot of people do, for research purposes, to kind of see what's the hype all about. What is making so many people read this book? Obviously Leonard Delaney is a pen name, so I write more serious stuff too. But so I picked up 50 Shades of Grey to kind of just see what is actually selling out there, and obviously it's so poorly written. There's not much of a plot. There's not much kind of objectively quality stuff about it. So I was like, maybe if I put something out there that was intentionally shitty, just kind of taking that 50 Shades of Grey style and taking it one step further, making it more ridiculous, then I could kind of see what happens. So my first book was something called Sex Boat, an erotic novella about sex on a boat. So I just kind of made that obviously a shitty cash grab erotica, not even trying type of thing. And that didn't do very well. It didn't sell or anything. But it was kind of practice to just get something out there, self-publish it, see what the whole process is like, which I kind of apply to my other writing, apply to future books, and again, just kind of experiment and see what happens.
So was Sex Boat a more seriously toned or a serious tone erotica, or does it have that tongue-in-cheekness to it also?
Yeah, it's definitely got that tongue-in-cheekness. It was more, not as bizarro in a way. I mean, it's weird, being on this podcast, because I never set out to be a bizarro author with this stuff. So Sex Boat was kind of it was more parody of erotica. But then, I just I got bored with that halfway through, so I just threw in a fucking sea monster to see what happens. And that worked out pretty well in the end. So, the next few books just kind of ratcheted up the bizarreness, step by step. Eventually I'm at the ones that you've seen that kind of got some media attention.
Yeah, and that's where I first saw your stuff, obviously, and we'll touch on a little bit, but your book Conquered by Clippy got crazy meme virus action on it. Yeah. But I had also seen in the Bizarro circles you're taken by Tetris blocks. That was really the first thing I noticed by you, and that's what I think what makes your weird erotica stand out from a lot of the other stuff is were you aware of that dinosaur erotica and that Bigfoot erotica when you started putting pen to paper on this stuff?
I became aware of it kind of after putting out that first book. So I picked that up, Christy Sims with what's it called, Taken by the T-Rex. Obviously that kind of inspired Taken by the Tetris blocks. So yeah, I became aware of that, and I think that's kind of in a different category than what I'm doing, and other authors like Mandy DeSandra and Chuck Tingle and all those authors that have taken it one step further and kind of become more self-aware about it. But yeah, obviously that Bigfoot stuff and the dinosaur stuff is an inspiration, and a lot of people shit on it. They're just it's just a cash grab, or it's just kind of trying to get attention. But what's wrong with that? If you can do it, and if people are enjoying it, no matter how they're enjoying it, then fine. Put it out there. So yeah, I've been inspired by that stuff too.
That's great. And how about Bizarro? Were you aware of Bizarro? Because it seems like Bizarro almost took you and claimed them for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to put it, actually. Because I never aimed in that direction. But, after I started putting some of this stuff out, I think even before that with my other pen name, I had someone review one of my books and say, this is kind of on the edge of Bizarro. And I've heard of Bizarro. I've heard the word come up a few times, but then I started really looking into it. And I picked up Carlton Mellick. I think the Menstruating Mall was my first exposure to Bizarro. And that just kind of changed my outlook on, what's possible with fiction. And I kind of had this revelation, like, okay, that there are these people, there's this whole community of people out there putting out this weird stuff that they just, they don't give a shit about conventions. And we're in the self-publishing era that naturally fits with that. So, I think Bizarro kind of inspired the future books like Taken by the Tetris Blocks and Conquered by Clippy in that way. Even though I wasn't aiming at Bizarro specifically, it kind of inspired me to kind of try anything. So I think that's the beauty of Bizarro, is that even if you're not part of the community completely or kind of aiming for it, it's still inspiring.
Yeah, that's when I first got exposed to Bizarro, was what I loved, is like, oh, I see there's no rules any longer. Like, excuse me, there's nothing that has to tether the world to anything. The world is whatever you need to mold your world to be. And the more freeing you allow yourself, I mean, the more crazier stories can get.
Yeah.
Intense stuff. Let's get to Conquered by Clippy. What happened there? This is your second book in your Digital Desire series. Like, you had already done the Tetris box, and out comes Clippy, and bang, it blows up. What happened there?
Yeah, it's interesting because I put out Taken by the Tetris blocks, and I'm going to sound kind of like academic here. I'm almost like looking at it from the outside because I have a PhD in my real life where I kind of take a scientific approach to things. And I put out Conquered by Clippy, and then I'm one of those people who like searches my name on social media. So I search for Conquered by Clippy once in a while, and because of that, I could kind of track the exact moment it took off, and that's when I kind of retweeted it with my other pen name, which is no one famous or anything, but just my real life name, and the author Charles Strauss happened to see that on my feed, and then he retweeted it, and then he has like 20,000 followers, so it just kind of started getting retweeted over and over, and that's the moment, like that exact moment when that one person retweeted that one tweet. That's when it took off, and reporters started sending me direct messages and wanting to talk. People started buying it in not as many numbers as you'd think, but people did start buying it. I saw my sales kind of spike. It was just that one lucky break, having one kind of famous author look at it and, be amused enough to hit the retweet button, that really made it take off.
So a completely planned marketing campaign.
No, not exactly. Although it's funny because since then I've kind of tried to capture that magic again, and obviously I can't because that's just it's one of those lucky things where if you try to force it, it's just not going to work. So a few of my other things have taken off in smaller amounts. But Conquered by Clippy is still the one that gets written about and still comes up in the media once in a while. So it's one of those things where it's just a lucky coincidence that people paid attention to it, and I've just been trying to keep that going ever since.
When I first saw the Conquered by Clippy, like I said, I'd seen the Tetris box in passing, and I was just sort of dismissive at it, clumped it into that Bigfoot dinosaur shit that I hated. Yeah. But when Clippy got all that love and attention and just went viral like crazy, I stopped and looked at it, and I'm like, okay, first of all, it's not that dinosaur weird, almost freaking animal sex shit craziness, right? This is like, it's a completely inanimate digital object. Like, how do we fuck things like that? And then I'm reading the reviews, and he's getting his little poker hot, and I'm like, this is crazy, and it's bizarro is what I'm reading here. And I mean, obviously, you got to say it's tongue in cheek right off the title, but I started like, I think what your book is when I started giving it a pass and started like saying, okay, maybe there's something to this, or maybe this erotic, crazy, stupid shit is becoming something that, you're obviously not meant to jerk off to it. And if you tell me people are jerking off to it, God bless them.
Oh, they are.
But
it's weird.
Obviously, that's not truly your intent here.
Yeah.
So I think your book was the first thing that started, I think showing me that stuff was evolving into something else, almost a legitimate, not jerk off form. I don't even know how to put it, but it was moving away from just that sloppy erotica nonsense into something that's closer to Bizarro and almost an offshoot.
I appreciate that, and I don't take it seriously, obviously, but I do try. In a way, like I said, I don't write it to be Bizarro, but I try to insert that kind of like hard science fiction, like with the bizarre assumption that you're going to fuck a paperclip. How would that actually happen in some kind of semi-plausible way? And in the same way that people like look at some Bizarro and they're like, oh, it's just weird for the sake of being weird. I try to avoid that kind of erotic for the sake of being erotic. I try to put in characters that are interesting and some weird ass hard science fiction to kind of connect it to reality in some tenuous way. To make it more than just that sloppy kind of, oh, look at how weird I am kind of thing.
Yeah, and now, obviously going viral, that bumps up your sales. We don't need to discuss that. What I really want to know is how much did going viral pump up your love life?
Well, not much. I'm happy in a relationship, so it doesn't help that much. And plus, it doesn't help having this damn pen name, where I almost regret putting out this stuff under a pen name, just because it's hard to be proud of it when it's like this almost alternate personality that put it out. I know you had Christoph Paul on a few weeks ago. I was just listening to that interview, and he almost compared it to like Fight Club, where it's like this Tyler Durden thing. And it's kind of the same way, where like all these awesome things that Tyler Durden is doing, awesome being subjective, it's hard to be proud of it. So yeah, in terms of like affecting my real life, it hasn't much. Like I tell my friends who I am and everything, but it's this weird separation that happens as soon as you have a pen name.
Now it's interesting your pen name, because first of all, for an erotica pen name, it's really nothing like playful. It is a very sort of normal name. Why did you pick Leonard Delaney to go with?
Yeah, if you want to know, I'll tell you, because I don't think I've told anyone this before, where it actually came from. But the Leonard is from E.L. James from 50 Shades of Grey. The L in that is Leonard, so it's like Leonard. And then Delaney is from I'm trying to remember, like Amanda McKittrick Ross wrote this book called like Delina Delaney or something, which is supposed to be one of the worst books of all time. So I was like, okay, the 50 Shades of Grey is really shitty, so I'll take the Leonard from that. And then one of the worst books of all time, I'll take the Delaney from that, and Leonard Delaney. It kind of rolls off the tongue. So that's where it came from. It wasn't just completely random, but that's the story behind it.
So you obviously mentioned Christoph Paul's interview, and obviously Christoph Paul is out as Mandy DeSandra.
Yeah.
And it was a choice he kind of decided, should I or should I not? You stuck with the Leonard Delaney. I had had an inkling that you weren't really Leonard Delaney. But why have you chosen to stick with it? Just because name recognition at this point?
Yeah, at this point, it's just it's the name I chose and the name I'm known as. So I'll stick with it. I'll probably come out at some point. Like, you know who I am. Other people know who I am. It's probably easy to Google if you really want to know. And it's not like I'm anyone famous, so it's not like it would be this big revelation anyway. So I'll stick with Leonard for now, and if he becomes more famous than my real name, then so be it.
Yeah, like before we started this interview, I'm like, oh, so you're that guy? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, nobody knows him neither, so it's all right.
Exactly. It's not like anyone actually gives a shit. So.
But you think it's nice to have been kept a certain anonymity after that whole thing going viral?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad that I've at least got that in my pocket, and I can reveal it if I need to. So it is good in a way because it kind of frees me to just do whatever the hell I want, knowing that if I go for a job interview, someone's not going to Google my name and come up with Leonard Delaney and be like, well, what about this Taken by the Tetris blocks, or whatever my other books are, Motherfucking Wizards. Like, you don't want that coming up in a job interview or whatever. And I don't care about that too much, but it's good to at least have the control over that. So yeah, I'll stick with it for now.
I think that's a good call. I don't know. Look, I think Christoph is more or less this is what he does. He writes, but you have obviously another life outside of the writing. So I guess, especially with the material, it's probably best just to keep it really off the radar.
Yeah. And you want to know something really weird is that I encountered the same people like in my day job that have like covered Leonard Delaney, in this pen name, because it's kind of tech-based erotica, and I work in tech in my day job. So like my heroes in my day job, journalists and other people involved in tech are tweeting about Leonard Delaney and want to interview me. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, they've never paid attention to my crappy day job, but now they're paying attention to Conquered by Cliffy. So it's bizarre, this world we lived in,
That's pretty great. Now, the press you're publishing under, that's your own created, the Forest City Pulp Press?
Yeah, I kind of co-founded that with another author. I'd hesitate to call it even a small press at this point. It's basically just a few guys getting together and saying, hey, let's kind of pool our resources, edit each other's stuff, put it out there, and kind of cross-promote it a little bit. So it's more of a kind of branding of a few people than it is a small press. But yeah, it's been good to kind of put it out there as an actual brand rather than just kind of one dude. So I've enjoyed that.
I got to tell you, when I first started researching further what you did, and I saw the pulp press, and I got really excited. Like, I like not only the Leonard Delaney stuff, but you got Frank and your other. His name escapes me. Your other partner.
There's Cal Chase and there's Martha Jeffries too.
Yeah, but the titles you're putting out, I mean, it's not all erotica. There's a lot of kind of screwy horror and just real playful stuff. And it was really exciting. I'm like, oh, this is like, I like what they're doing. There's like a new direction. It all looks exciting. And probably not since like maybe Strange House. For me, since Strange House showed up on the scene, like, was I so excited about like this new press. So I've been having a lot of fun seeing what you put out there and enjoying everything that's coming out under the press. You going to continue with that, or are you looking to? I see you've also started working with Strange House, submitting stuff to them. Are you expanding out?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I'm going to keep Forest City Pulp going, and there's been external people that have shown interest in that too. So I might keep it going and try to turn it into something more than just this informal kind of branding thing, and see what happens. The whole idea of Forest City Pulp is that it's just, again, it's not a bizarro thing that I'm aiming for, but it is kind of provocative fiction. And we started it with the idea that we kind of try new mediums like or media, like doing serial fiction or these short works that couldn't have really existed except in the digital age. So we're going to keep trying stuff like that, kind of pushing the boundaries of what is erotica, what is horror, that type of thing. So I'm definitely not going to stop doing that, but it's been fun working with New Kink now. It was Rooster Republic at the time, but after that got kind of sold off, it became New Kink, and it was cool to actually get my name, in an anthology with Strange Sex 3. So I'm not going to close the door on any of that either, but I like having both sides, where I do the purely self-published thing, but also explore the other side of going a more traditional route.
And speaking of which, do you plan on maybe writing some more traditional erotica, or maybe even more traditional fiction that's not erotica?
Well, yeah. I'll do the more traditional stuff, probably under different names. I think Leonard's going to stick with the kind of bizarro erotica now that it's called that. And I don't know about traditional erotica. Like, it's hard for me to sit down at a keyboard and think it's something that would actually turn me on. That's not connected to this larger story. Just purely designed to kind of make people jerk off. Because Leonard, it was always kind of the back of my mind, I need to throw a joke into this scene, or make the writing a little shittier here and there, just so it's more kind of a joke a minute type of thing, or not even jokes, just kind of make it entertaining. Whereas erotica, you have to actually take that seriously. So I really respect the people that can do that. I just don't know if I could do it.
That's cool. And well, obviously you said you publish under different names, so I guess your more straighter work is under those names. Yeah,
for sure. Even that, it's been, like I said, it's been called kind of the edge of bizarro. So, there's, I'm never going to be normal. It's just not who I am. But,
I do have to compliment you. I'd read a couple of titles under your other straight name, and I was blown away that you are the same person, because the writing is really good on the the straight, the non-erotica stuff. So it was like, oh wow, this is the same guy that writes this trashy Delaney stuff. That's great. You're versatile, shall we say?
I try. Yeah.
How long does it take you, roughly, to spit out a Conquered by a Clippy or Taken by a Tetris Blocks?
It depends. The first few I did were novellas, kind of I think 40,000 words. So those took, probably 2 months or so. And the first few Digital Desires ones, like the Taken by the Tetris Blocks and Conquered by Clippy, Invaded by the iWatch, those probably took a few weeks each. But then I've been experimenting lately with these kind of in the news topics. The one I just put out, I think yesterday or the day before, was my racist robot lover, who's that Microsoft Tay chatbot that suddenly became racist because it was exposed to Twitter. I saw that story in the news about the Microsoft bot, and I was like, oh, I've already written about these artificial intelligence kind of weird tech erotica. I've got to get something out about this while it's still in the news, just so I can kind of, almost just kind of as a challenge to myself to demonstrate, you can take something that's in the news today and publish a book about it tomorrow. So there's been a few like that. There's that one in the, what's it called? The Oregon Patriots one. Oregon Patriots occupied my butt. That's the one. Where it was kind of something that was in the news. I was like, I'm just going to, take the weekend, sit down for 6 hours and write an entire story in a weekend, design a cover, slap it on Amazon, and try to make it as good as possible. Edit it and make sure it's actually coherent. But just see if I can do it in a weekend. And I've managed to put 2 out like that, and it worked out okay. I don't know if they're going to be winning any awards, but it is possible now in today's age to kind of just write an entire short story, 4,000 words, and put it on Amazon and have it for sale right away, which still blows my mind every time I see that happen.
I'm glad you brought up those books, because that was my next line of questioning. I've noticed very recently among your new crop of weird erotica writers that being the first to the table with the latest trendy topic in my butt is like a thing. And like you said, I first saw it like with you and the Oregon protesters, and you just came up with this, you said the racist robot, which it didn't even come up on my news feed yet before you were already covering it. How important do you see that nowadays? Is that like the new thing, or are you guys kind of trying to one-up each other and get to it first?
In a way. I think Chuck Tingle kind of was a pioneer in that area where, like the what was it called? The inclusive holiday cups, like the Starbucks, people were angry because it didn't say Christmas on them.
Yeah.
And he had a book about that like the next day. So I think him and, even Mandy DeSandra has kind of jumped on the news a few times. So that there is kind of this one-upmanship that's happening between these authors. And I don't know, I enjoyed it, just as an experiment to see if I could do it. I don't know if I'll keep that going. Like the Oregon one, for example. No one's talking about that anymore. No one gives a shit about it. So do I really want to spend that effort on a book and put it out there and it's irrelevant within a week? There's the upside in that when it's relevant, it's really relevant. But then a week later, it fades away. And then I just kind of feel dirty for having put so much effort into something that doesn't matter anymore. So, it was cool to do. I don't know if I'll keep kind of doing these one-off, really quick books as making a habit of it. But sometimes something comes up in the news that's just too good to pass up, and then I have to jump on it.
Gotcha. And another experiment you did, which I really loved the concept, it's a great concept, was you wrote this, basically a review, fuck me in the butt type of book.
Yeah.
But your goal is to change that review with the next bad review that comes up for the book.
That's exactly it.
And are you still going with that?
I am, yeah. I've got a few new reviews on the UK site that I need to incorporate into the book and have those reviews be fucked. And I've already updated it once. So you can see, like, if you read the reviews, then read the book. Those reviews are now in the book. It was kind of a cool experiment because it was one of those things, again, where I'm kind of playing with the medium, where I'm trying to, and I don't mean to like make myself sound like some artist that's playing with pushing the boundaries of art or anything, but like For City Pulp, like I said, it's always been about kind of treating this new digital reality as something unique. And with that, I wanted to try again and see, can you have a book that you buy once, but then just gets updated over and over, and you can, you were talking earlier about kind of reusing books. This is kind of designed to be reused, where every time you read it, it's going to have new chapters that, kind of feed back on the reactions to the book itself. So I wanted to just see if that would work, and it kind of works so far. I kind of have to get Amazon to email people every time it's updated because it's not designed to do that. So it requires some kind of manual pushing, but it works. It's kind of cool to collaborate with the people who are reacting to the book to create something new.
That is almost the epitome of what I see you doing. Is just everything is so experimental. You're taking dares. Even you don't even publish in paperback, right? This is all digital.
I have paperbacks too. I collect a few of the stories, like 3 or 4 stories at once, and then put them out in a paperback. So like the Digital Desires you can get in paperback, and there's one called the Pop Culture Value Combo, which takes some of those kind of in the news books, puts them together. So yeah, I'm trying to stick with the traditional things too, and some of the marketing stuff that works traditionally and all that, in addition to the kind of cutting edge, viral marketing, all this new stuff that wouldn't be possible.
Do you see this whole thing continuing? Do you see it lasting, or do you think it's going to have a point where it just becomes oversaturated or overdone, and it's eventually going to go away?
I think it'll go away, or more accurately, it'll kind of evolve. Like you said, we kind of have this one-upmanship happening right now, where everyone's just trying to top the next person with something even more bizarre or more kind of seemingly impossible. And that can only go so far. Like, eventually people are just going to want a good story that may have bizarre elements or, have erotic elements, but is also just a good story. And the novelty will wear off. So, maybe we'll keep finding new ways to push it further and see what we can do. Maybe a new medium will come along and we'll start experimenting with that. But I think the novelty of just bizarre erotica is going to wear off eventually. And people are going to want either, their straight erotica, or they're going to want their bizarre, actual stories with good characters and good plots. And then it'll kind of die off or evolve into something different.
I think it'd be nice if it evolved, because I'm just starting to gain an appreciation for what's going on. And it has, like we've discussed before, it has sort of gone through a bit of an evolution. And it's moving away from, I guess, really its origins are for you to jerk off.
Yeah.
And it's becoming less and less about that and becoming something more serious with a touch of erotic. It'd be nice to see it go on and see what it becomes. That's really probably the most exciting part.
Yeah, if it can mature and become an art form with its own tropes and its own kind of patterns, it could be something a little more not literary ever, but it can become its own thing. I think it's still kind of finding that when you find the authors trying to kind of compete with each other. I think that's them kind of jockeying to find the right place where it ends up. So maybe it will mature and evolve in that way, or it'll just die off and something new will take its place.
Is there anybody out there you'd like to see dip their toes into it and come up with some kind of weird erotica?
Oh man, I think you should do it, Frank. You've been such an opponent.
I know
of bizarre erotica that I think you should try it.
I keep playing with the idea. I talk to you guys. I talk to Christoph. I talk to the guys over at Rooster, and I'm like, it'd just be so easy, and I'm sure I could come up, but I'm like, no, I can't do it. It would be wrong. So if you guys can get me to write one, that would be probably the next evolution of the genre.
I'll keep trying. Hopefully some of the other people who come on your show will push you in that direction.
We'll see. How about for you? Where do you see yourself going? Not only as Leonard, but as your other personalities, your other nom de plumes. Where are you going to grow?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to keep writing because that's what I've always done. Keep trying to publish a few things here and there, both traditionally and self-publishing. Just kind of keep going and see what happens. Like I said, I like this new world we live in where you can do whatever you want and you don't have to be confined by genres. You don't have to be confined by people gatekeeping your work too much. I'm excited to keep going in that direction.
That's awesome. And I should be addressing the 800-pound gorilla in the room. You're Canadian.
I am Canadian.
It's very echoey in Canada this evening.
Oh, is it? Well,
you come across that way. What is the scene, the writing scene up there like for where you are?
There's not too much of a scene. There might be. I don't know. I'm just some dude. I don't consider myself like a pro writer or anything. So, but Forest City Pulp, like that kind of small pressy type thing that I've got going. That evolved from just kind of connecting with a few local authors here in London, Ontario, which is the Forest City. That's I think its nickname. There's kind of these little pockets of scenes. We've got the Comic-Con and the big conferences that come along once in a while. But in terms of the writing scene, I think it's these small pockets rather than anything huge. I know Portland is kind of this hotbed of Bizarro, but But I haven't seen anything like that forming in Canada yet. But maybe we can make London, Ontario that place. Come to the Forest City for all your Bizarro needs.
That would be too sweet. Just be another reason I got to get up to Canada.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, how would you got cons up there? You don't really push Forest City at cons, do you?
Like Forest City Pulp?
Yeah.
I've been to some local things, but I don't think it's kind of gotten big enough to be going to cons and getting tables there yet. You never know. I might do that. Problem with having a day job and all that is that finding the time for that and writing gets hard. I know every writer complains about that, but maybe I'll get out to some cons sometime.
So you wouldn't mind putting yourself out there, putting your face out there at a con?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I've done it under my other name.
Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't have to say you're Leonard Delaney. You just
for sure. Like I've gone to cons and had a table there and had Leonard Delaney's books if anyone wants to look at them. So another one of those weird things where I'm not gonna go out and play a character or anything. So it is what it is.
See, now right now there's a bunch of people up there in Canada going, "Son of a bitch, it was him."
Yeah, it could be.
It was like they got to see Kiss without their makeup, and they didn't realize it until after the fact. This weird erotica thing keeps coming up, and it just keeps every time I talk about it. I'm like, all right, there's a legitimacy to it now. So
yeah, it's getting hard to ignore, eh? Like it's weird because when I first got into it, there wasn't anyone else doing that kind of intentionally bizarre erotica. Like there's the dinosaur stuff and all that, but then this kind of intentionally going a step further. I don't think that really existed until the last year or two.
I think you're right. And when I first really became aware of it, Kevin Strange announced he was going to do this Monster Erection when he was with Strange House, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I wasn't really aware of all this dinosaur shit, and I'm like, so. I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, somebody writes a dinosaur porn and makes $1 million an hour. Everybody's got to do it. Like, that shit drives me nuts. One person makes $1 million, and then everybody tries to copy it. And that's really what first drove me nuts about it. I'm like, this is just copycat shit because it struck gold for one person.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're going to make a whole imprint? This is stupid. I couldn't take it. So he started putting out the books, and I'm like, ugh, and I was just shitting on it more and more. And like you said, you see these $2.99, and I open it up and it's 5 pages, and I'm like, what the fuck? There was even one it was like a free one. It was like the first time I dipped my toes into actually looking at it, and it was something about the naughty nurse, some bullshit, and it was free on Amazon, so I grab it. And the book was like written by a guy in Uganda, or at least that was his command of the English language. And it had nothing to do with nurses other than like the first line is, I'm a nurse, and blah, blah. And then the rest of the story is like, and I love my boyfriend, but my boyfriend just lets all his friends rape me. And I let them rape me because I love my boyfriend. And they were like 20 stories that are all like, hey, I'm a nurse, and I really love my boyfriend. And, he invited all his friends over, and they gangbanged me, and he watched me cry. I'm like, this is so fucking stupid, crazy. So
I think there's like a lot of scammers out there who are just like explicitly jumping on it and putting out crap because they know a few people will buy it because they're curious.
Yeah, and it's, I guess that crap almost lends to like what Christoph, he's like, you don't have to edit this shit tight. You give it a once over. It doesn't matter if it's fucked up because nobody expects it to be any good. And it's almost, the lack of editing is almost part of the charm of what it is. I think that's like when you're talking about evolving and becoming its own thing. I think that's part of it is shitty Photoshop covers, and poorly edited books. I mean, there's got to be a half-assed attempt, but anything beyond giving it a once over and a spell check, you're good. Yeah,
that's true. Like with my first Delaney books, I started writing them, kind of just as books, and then I realized like this is too well written. I have to like dumb down the language, add a few awkward grammar sentences here and there to make it more authentic.
So that's pretty awesome that you have that ability to dumb it down.
Yeah,
it's almost like I think like in Boogie Nights when you got Marky Mark singing, awful. And like this is Marky Mark. Like Marky Mark can actually sing, and I think it's actually brilliant that he's able to force himself to sing so poorly. So it's almost what you're doing.
Yeah, no way. Yeah, and I always appreciate like actors who could do that, like just intentionally be shitty or or singers or whatever. Yeah.
So we're just about out of time this evening. Mr. Delaney, whatever your name is, love having you on the show. Love doing what you're doing. And thank you for being another stepping stone and trying to convert me over to the realm of the weird erotica.
Hey, thanks so much. Like I said, it's an honor to be here, and I really love what you're doing with the podcast and for the Bizarro community. So thanks a lot.
And I love what you're doing for the Bizarro community. Like I said, we took you, we stole you, we branded you, and I think as time grows, you're gonna start fitting in, Mr. Delaney or Mr. whatever your name is, and you're gonna have a nice, comfy place on the Bizarro couch because you got it in you.
Hey, thanks, man. I really genuinely appreciate that. Thank you.
You keep doing what you're doing with Varsity Pulp because you guys, you know how to play with ideas, you know how to play with words, you know how to play with the market, and most importantly, you know how to play with yourself.
Oh, I sure do.
Leonard Delaney, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you nothing but the best going forward, and I hope something else goes big and viral, and we just got to have you back on the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Frank. I'd be honored.
There he is, Zongers, the great Leonard Delaney. If you're into that weird erotica shit, he's like, as far as I'm concerned, he's like upper echelons of what you should be reading. Chuck Tingle level shit. But you know what? I've never read Chuck Tingle, but I have read Leonard fucking Delaney. It is what it is, and he seems to be, along with Mandy DeSandra, they're the people that are doing it. Time after time. Keeping it real, making it something different. Zongers, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but seriously, it's come to this. We've implored you time and time again, if you not only love Bizzong, but love everything going on in the Project iRadio, to please visit patreon.com/Project iRadio and give us $1. We've got a funding goal to meet of about $300. Now, what does that mean? It means that $300, if we meet that funding goal, you continue to get all these great podcasts, no problem. That'll fund hosting bandwidth costs for the entire network of shows here on Project iRadio. Now, I'm no fool, and I get it. There's a bazillion podcasts out there for you to listen to. 99.9% of them are all free. And they don't beg you for $1 or more of your time. I get it. Look, we're not asking for a free ride. You're going to get something for your money. Maybe we're going to, we're continually working on the network behind the scenes to bring you more great value for what you donate to us. There's the ebook subscription for $10. There's the new $20 level where you get the live Q&A chat. I said last week it was like build your own show. It's more like a Q&A chat, but you dictate who comes on and what questions are asked and participate and all that. It's a great time to, make the network what it is, what you want. Like I said, you can still make it a mashup. You tell them, hey, I'm paying $20 and I want to listen to Brian Keene and the Buttercup of Doom and Arm and Two. If I want them all on there on the Q&A, I got questions for them all. You control the show for $20. And listen, Bizzong. And listen, Zongers. Outside of that, there's a lot of writers here. Listen to the show. And with good reason. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make a nice podcast for Bizarro and weird fiction writers to connect and learn about what everybody else is doing. If you got a book coming out, seriously, forget about Patreon shit. We have great advertising rates. We'll do live reads for your books. I'm sure you've all heard the horror show at Brian Keene pitching out books in horror and Kevin Strange. He went over and he got advertising done. Very, very reasonable rates to reach a great many people. It's a fantastic vehicle to get the name of your book and your name out there. on any Project iRadio show, including Bizzong. It's a very focused group. We're talking about bizarre and weird fiction. If you're writing that, forget the dollar. Throw some marketing dollars down on your book to Bizzong. It's another way to help out the network. Keep these shows going and sell your book. It's a wonderful opportunity to get your book out there. So consider advertising on the Project iRadio. I hate to say it, but if funding goals are not met, the network is going to have to start making tough choices. They haven't made it clear what those tough choices are. But I'm sure they're going to start asking all the hosts of the radios, all the hosts of the podcast, to start kicking in some funds. And I'm going to be honest with you, Zongers. I don't need Project iRadio to pay for, podcast hosting. I already do that with my other podcast. So I don't know what the future of this podcast will be if it comes to that. So let's not cross that bridge. If you have the means, if you think we're worth it, give us that buck. Advertise with us. I promise you, it's not a freebie. You're getting value for your money when you lay it down. Zongers! Enough of that. Next week, more great fucking interviews, more great fucking bizarro fiction writers. You're dismissed and free to listen to these other fine Project iRadio podcasts.
Buttercup of Doom on Project iRadio. I am your host, Kelly Owen. I'm just a girl who writes horror and thriller fiction, talks to bugs, jumps in puddles, and now hosts a weekly podcast full of opinions, advice, and a touch of gypsy wisdom, whether it's current affairs or social media nightmares. Join me, the Buttercup of Doom, Mondays on Project iRadio.
Do you like things scary? Do you like things loud? Dare to open the pages of the Necrocasticon. Each week we take heavy metal and horror properties and blend them together. The Necrocasticon. Thursday, exclusively on Project iRadio.